Before I go on, I just wanted to clarify something about the term fader and how I've been using it in these videos. So there's two different ways I've been using it. One way is fader as in the type of environment object these sliders are called. Remember here in the menu we have these faders, and there's vertical 1, 2, 3, 4. You have all these different types, and we also have our solo button over here as a fader. And a lot of times I'll use the terms fader and slider interchangeably. So that's one way I've been using the term. And the other way is fader data in how it relates to a type of Midi data and how it's similar to continuous controller data. And that's the type of data that the channel EQ is spitting out. So just wanted to clarify that before I moved on so you weren't confused. All right, so let's tackle the bandpass fader. So we're now looking at our completed fader and button environment layer that I created a while ago. All right, so here's an overview. It's kind of obvious to see that I have some kind of combination going on, part high pass, part low pass, to create this bandpass. So the high pass aspect of the bandpass comes from the bandpass fader itself. So if you look in the inspector here, you can see that it's identical to the high pass fader except for the range, which only goes up halfway to 64. So when I max out my bandpass fader with my mouse, like all the way to the top, I only want the high pass to go up halfway, not full way like the high pass fader. And I have it cabled to a transformer object, which gives me the capability of the low pass. And then it's ultimately cabled to the reference track. So now with the transformer object, this is where I really feel the magic of the environment starts to make itself known. All right, so back to our incomplete fader and button layer here that we're working on. So I'm going to create a transformer object. Go up to the menu here. And just so we can see the data change, I'm going to create two monitors before and after the transformer object. So for the longest time, I didn't know what this thing did. I was probably just too lazy, but here it is. When data comes in on this cable into the transformer object, and that data could be a massive amount of data, MIDI note data, MIDI controllers, MIDI channel data, fader data, etc. Everything but audio data. So just so you know, you don't send audio data on cabling in the environment. It's only MIDI type data. So this data can be from any source. And I could have 100 different cablings going into this transformer object if I wanted to. So when the data comes in on this cable into the transformer object, you're saying, hey Logic, I want you to take these aspects of that data here in the conditions, and I want you to transform them, thus the transformer object name, into this type of data down here in operations. And the manner in which I would like you to spit information out of the transformer object, okay, on the output here, I set here in mode. So for instance, with mode, the default setting says apply operation and let non-matching events pass through. So it's going to send the transformed data out along with any data that happened to not be transformed. And the next setting here, apply operations and filter non-matching events. It's going to send transformed data out the output and then not send or filter the non-transformed data. That is any data that came in on the cable that happened to not meet the condition. So there's lots of different options with the transformer. So what I'm attempting to do is to take the data coming from my bandpass fader right now, which is this, or the high pass part of it, and transform it so that it creates the low pass part of the bandpass filter. So specifically, I'm going to transform fader 1, which is the setting for my channel EQ's high pass, into fader 29, which is the fader data number of my low pass part of the channel EQ plugin. And then I'm going to reverse that data. So instead of going from low to high, like it needs to with my high pass, I'm going to transform it to go from high to low. So right now, our transformer object settings are set to its default, which is basically not doing anything or not transforming. And to get to these settings, you double click on this transformer icon. So you can see in my monitor, everything that's going into the transformer is the same thing that's coming out of it. So starting with the condition, status. Status basically says what type of Midi data do I want to transform. I could say all, but in this case, I want to just do something specific. So I'm going to go to equals, and here you can see it defaults to note, but I want to choose fader data. So as I open this menu up, I have a bunch of different choices. So there's control, there's program, a few different other ones. I want fader data. Okay, so moving down the list, what type of Midi channel data do I want to work with or transform? I could choose all. In this case, I only want to go with the third channel, which, remember, as we saw earlier, corresponds to the plug-in insert number. In this case, I'm going to choose 3 because that is the plug-in insert that our channel EQ is on. All right, so moving on to data byte 1 and data byte 2. Data bytes are really just placeholder names, which are dependent on what type of status you choose. So if I choose note data, you see this changes to pitch and velocity, respectively. So in our case with fader data, data byte 1 is the fader number. So I'm going to choose 1, which is our channel EQ's fader number for its high-pass filter. Data byte 2 is the value for that fader number. So we know we're dealing with fader number 1, but within fader number 1, it has a potential value or range of 0 to 127. And in this case, our bandpass fader's range only goes from 0 to 64, halfway. So I'm going to choose all for this. All right, so let's look at the operations, which is what we're going to transform the data into. So starting with the status, or the type of data. And how this works is just follow your mouse straight down. And right now it's just being sent through the transformer unchanged. So I ask, do I need to transform my fader data into another type of data? Well, I have the option of changing it to, say, note or control, if I select fix here. But in this case, I'm going to leave it unchanged, or it through. So you may ask, well, if you're not going to transform it, why do you need to select it here? Well, I will be transforming the fader number and its value, data bytes 1 and 2. So I still need to select fader so logic knows that we're working with fader data and not some other type. And same thing with Midi channel number here, which again, Midi channel corresponds to the plug-in insert slot number on the channel strip. And I don't want to change that because I want to do all my transforming within the channel EQ itself. All right, so data byte 1 and data byte 2, this is where I'm going to make my changes. So if I open up this menu, I'm giving many different options on how I could transform this data. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix fader number 1, which fader number 1 is the channel EQ's high pass, to fader 29, which is the low pass. And with data byte 2, I want to take all of its value, which is, remember, 0 to 64, and I want to reverse it. And again, I have a menu with lots of different options. And when it reverses it, I think the value becomes 127 to 63. All right, so as I move my bandpass fader up, we can see that it is doing what it's supposed to over here in the channel EQ. And as we look in the monitors, we can see their input is what we're calling our high pass information, or fader 1, in a range of 0 to 64. But on our output, we're not only seeing that information, but we're also seeing the transformation, which is fader 29 and a value of 127 to 63. All right, so it looks like I'm completed. So now what I can do is I can make a small version of this to put anywhere on my workspace. So I'm going to go in here into the environment layer. I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to turn on protect positions and hide cables. And I'm going to turn on frameless floating window. So now, if I could just make this smaller. So basically when you do these sorts of things, you put all your pertinent controls in your top left-hand corner so that you can close it like this. So the monitor and the transformer won't be seen. All right, once I got that done, really now I can put this wherever I want on my workspace and create a screen set so that it'll always be there whenever I choose that screen set. All right, and that's it. Thanks for watching the videos. Have fun with this stuff.